So anyway, let's talk about the sports. This is a presentation I gave at the conference this year, and if it's okay, is there going to be a problem if I step back a little bit?
That's fine.
All right, so I'm going to rip through this, and we're going to talk about sports products. Earlier I shared with you that my mom had gracefully described our sports drink as reconstituted sweat with some carbohydrate. Okay, that goes into the DNA of Shaklee and how product development takes place. A few years ago, Shaklee came to me and said, "Hey, we're interested in updating our sports line. Would you be willing to help us with this?" I said, "Yes, absolutely," because I believe in what you're trying to do and the philosophy. So we, just over a year ago, relaunched our sports line, updated it, and I want to share with you what went into that, how we developed it, and why now I believe this is the most comprehensive sports set of sports products for what we have on the market. So we're going to start by saying what actually happens when you work out, okay? What happens to the human body? It's the most important thing to understand. Let's start with energy, okay? These are training zones that athletes are somewhat familiar with. You're going to find it at pretty much every gym in America. Okay, over here, this is the percentage of your maximum heart rate. So 190, 80, 70, 60% of your maximum heart rate, and this is your age. Obviously, you get older with time. So at age 20, your maximum heart rate for most people is around 200. You lose about a beat per minute per year. So you can see there it's 190. At 40, it's about 180. And these are ballpark estimates, okay? But what we also know is that in that top 10%, you're in a physiological range called the VO2 max. And in about the 10% zone below that, you're in a zone called anaerobic or lactic acid threshold zone. Below that, you're in a high aerobic zone, then a low aerobic, then a light activity. Okay, so a lot of people are familiar with this slide because it's been on gym walls for years, but a lot of people don't understand how the energy systems associated with this work. So that's what we're going to look at. You can notice this on this side, we've still got all the training zones, right? Okay, so I'm going to use running or foot activity as an example, and you can extrapolate this out, rowing, for instance. And we're looking at energy, so think of cardiovascular expenditures. Okay, so if you start in the lowest zone of light activity, what would be an example? It would be walking. Okay, now what's important to note here is what types of energy you're using. Now we're burning fat and blood glucose. Blood glucose is the sugar that's floating around in your blood that's available right now for you to utilize for your energy. This column over here is the estimated caloric usage rate in calories per hour. So you notice we're not burning a lot of calories, and you're burning some fat, okay, and a little bit of blood glucose. But this would be a very light activity. Next activity might be jogging. So this is at about 60-ish% of your maximum heart rate. Okay, you'll notice in this zone you're burning fat, you're burning a little bit of something called glycogen, and then you're burning blood glucose. So glycogen, who here has actually heard of glycogen before? A handful of you. Okay, all the people that have heard my presentation, right? It's like telomeres. Everybody in Shaklee is going to know about glycogen. You can see we're burning a few more calories. By the way, by definition, aerobic means with air. So it's we're burning with oxygen here, right? Okay, and so as I go to moderate running, okay, so this would be, sort of endurance running type activity. Now I'm burning fat, glycogen, and consumed carbs. Okay, so what is this glycogen thing that Eli keeps on talking about? Glycogen is the stored carbohydrate in your body. It's like our fuel for our afterburner kind of thing. Like it's what we utilize in an anaerobic metabolic capacity to generate energy for our bodies. And we all have it in our bodies, different amounts depending on how highly trained you are. But as you go up here, you'll notice, here I've actually said consume carbs instead of blood glucose because you're going to burn through whatever glucose is in your blood. You don't have tons and tons of it in there. And this is why, like, if you're drinking a sports drink during a workout, you can work out at a higher level because you're consuming carbohydrates, and that becomes available glucose in your blood, and you can burn that as an energy source. Okay. What starts becoming really interesting is as we get up into the 80-ish% of your heart rate, which would be hard interval running. This is if you're on a track, if you're doing fartleks, things like that. You notice we're not burning any fat here. Why? Because this is an anaerobic activity. Okay, but look at what's happening to your calories, 900 to 1,200 calories an hour. So in yesteryear, we used to say do aerobic training because it burns fat. So if you want to lose fat, aerobic training. It's a very simple way of looking at things. And that came from these down here. You know, gee, we want to burn the fat. The problem is you're only burning a few hundred calories an hour. What's the fun in that? So, so now we see a lot more hard interval training as a method for working out. And then the final stage is called VO2 max, and that would be an all-out sprint. And that's an unsustainable, that's like the tigers trying to catch you, and you're running for your life. Okay, this lasts about 90 seconds, and then you're bam out. And you fall from here down somewhere into here, because your body basically shuts down, and you have to recycle. And that's 1,500, it could be 2,000 calories an hour rate. I mean, you're cranking up here. So this is what's actually happening. If you look here, the farther down you go, the more fat you're burning. The farther up you go, the more glycogen you're burning. Okay? So glycogen is stored in your muscle, it's stored in your liver, and it is a very potent supply for energy. Your body, we've recently discovered, actually I think it's in the next slide, yeah. We've recently discovered a lot more about how glycogen actually works. A lot of this research has been done by Dr. Sokolowicz, who is now with Shaklee as our Pure Performance Team physiologist. He's a long-time consultant to me, worked with me as a coach when I was training. Worked with 110 Olympic gold medalists, so he's seen a few good athletes in his day. Some of you might have heard of, like Michael Phelps, who's a consultant to Michael for a long time. And he works with a whole bunch of Olympic committees throughout the world, one of the world-leading physiologists. Dr. Sokolowicz has done a tremendous amount of research on the impacts of glycogen and lactic acid production in elite athletes. And as a result of some of what he's done, some of what other people have done, we're starting to learn more that lactic acid, have you guys heard of lactic acid? Yep. It sounds nasty. Your body ferments this when you're working out. We used to think of it as a nasty byproduct. Now, one of the big theories is that you actually use it as a source of energy while you're working out. So we actually still don't know all this stuff, how it's working, but we do know it's related to the glycogen supplies in your body. And so Dr. Sokolowicz did a lot of work on our elite swimmers in the late 2000s, leading up to the 2000 Olympics, and discovered that many athletes were deficient in, they were depleting their glycogen supplies, and they weren't rebuilding them sufficiently. So it's very interesting to see this was happening at elite athlete levels. So how does the glycogen supply get depleted? Well, if this column over here is your percentage glycogen content in your body. So when you start with full glycogen supply, it's like having gas in your tank. And you exercise heavily, so think about like hard interval running, okay, where we're heavily using glycogen as an energy supply. Somewhere around an hour without intervening, without ingesting additional carbohydrates, you're going to run out of glycogen. Now, a highly trained athlete will have more glycogen in their system. About an hour and a half, 2 hours of moderate exercise will also deplete your glycogen supplies. What's interesting is if I do light exercise, I don't deplete my glycogen. That makes sense, right? Because you saw on the previous slide, when you're doing low aerobic workouts, you're not utilizing glycogen. Your body doesn't need to tap into it, or our bodies only tap into that when we get to higher heart rates and a higher percentage of our maximum heart rate. So the key point of this slide is the harder you work out and the longer you work out, the more your body's supply of glycogen is depleted. Okay, so that's what's happening with your energy. What happens with your muscles? Well, there's a muscle fiber there for you. And what happens? You get some disruption, you get some tearing, you get some breakdown of the muscle, you get inflammation, thanks for fixing that slide, you get trauma, stress, and damage. Isn't that awesome?
Right.
I love it.
Right, okay, like, I want that. So what happens when you work out? Your stored energy is depleted, your muscles are torn down, and you're weaker than you were before you started. Which begs the question, why the heck do we work out? Okay, I mean, think about this. Like, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So he says, as an Olympian, he said, working out's a bad idea. Actually, it's not. And that's because our bodies have an interesting response to stress. And why is that? Because stress in the human body causes our bodies to want to rebuild stronger than they were before. So, this is very, very key. your nutrition that you consume during and after the workout has actually more of an impact than what you eat before. Okay, that is extremely important, and most people don't understand this. What you eat after is more important than what you eat before. And that's, the nutrients are the construction materials for your body. So at a very simple level, if you want to build a house and you're sitting there with an empty lot with no materials, you can't build a house. If you want to build a stronger body, and you've torn it down, you've leveled what was there before, and it's time to rebuild, and you don't give your body what it needs, it can't rebuild properly. Very common mistake with athletes. This is typically how athletes train. They work out really hard. But it's 100% over there. But they only recover about 70%, you know. They're not getting enough rest afterwards. They're not eating right. They're not eating the right proportions. They're not eating the right quality. Not sleeping enough. So if you work out at 100% and you recover at 70%, your total benefit's only 70%. Okay? But if I work out at 100%, recover at 100%, my total benefit from the workout's 100%. So this is Eli's law of working out. I just named it. Total benefit from the workout is the lesser of the workout or the recovery. If you're an athlete, if you're working with athletes, if you got athletes that you're working with your Shaklee products, this is an absolute law of physiology right here. It's incontrovertible. If you do not recover and take advantage of the workout you just did, you are not maximizing the benefit from your workout. This is probably a mistake made by 95% or more athletes, even up into the elite level. As you get into the elite level, you see something very different. And I was telling someone earlier today, when I built out my schedule as an athlete, I actually started with the recovery, and then I built my training into the recovery. Why is that? Because recovery is that important. Okay, so we looked at two different systems, the energy and the muscle. So how do you rebuild the energy? You have to replenish your glycogen with appropriate carbohydrates. Okay? And for muscle rebuilding, you have to create new muscle by consuming appropriate protein. So when we look at rebuilding energy supplies, let's look at the mechanics of this. I want to stop for 1 second. Who here has heard that carbohydrates are bad? Everybody raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. We all know carbohydrates are bad, right? Okay, we've all heard that.
We've heard it.
We've heard it. And you know what? It's generally correct. And I'm going to show you two examples now. The vast majority of people, I'm talking about sports nutrition here. I'm not talking about general nutrition. I'm talking about sports nutrition. So first I'm going to look at what happens when you consume carbohydrates if you're sedentary. You eat the carbohydrate, it goes into your GI tract. From there, it becomes blood glucose. Okay? So now your blood glucose levels elevate. From there, if you're sedentary, what happens? You secrete a hormone called, what's the hormone we secrete if your blood glucose is too high?
Insulin.
Insulin, thank you very much. And insulin takes blood glucose and converts it into fat. That's why carbohydrates have gotten a bad rap, because for most people, if you're sedentary, this is the track you're taking. But let's stop right here and say that you've got blood glucose from eating carbohydrates, quality carbohydrates, but you're now in a post-workout glycogen depleted environment. Where do you think it goes? Anyone want to take this? It goes into glycogen supplies. Okay, so what happens here is very critical. So are carbohydrates bad for you? The answer is it really depends on when you eat them. And which ones. But when you eat them from a sports physiology perspective, it's unbelievably important. Now, if you're not eating carbohydrates after you've depleted your glycogen, your body doesn't have the building blocks it wants to rebuild. One of the organs that relies heavily on glycogen is your liver. Liver goes out. Remember I said I was eating liver and it cleans up your body? Okay, well, if it doesn't have the energy it needs to clean up the body, you can't do it as efficiently. So we have a problem if you maintain a glycogen depleted state for too long. So this is how you rebuild energy supplies, and the difference between being sedentary and eating quality carbohydrates. Ideally, we're always eating quality stuff. and being in a post-workout state. So the next thing we should look at is what happens to your muscles. All right, so I eat a protein, goes to your GI tract and liver, where it's broken into amino acids. From that point, it goes into your bloodstream. Your blood carries those amino acids to the muscle, and your muscle uses it to A, rebuild old muscle, and B, build some new muscle. Okay? Notice that this doesn't have an easy path to fat, which is why high protein diets and stuff have become very, I won't say fat, but not necessarily a bad way. It's because the mechanism is much harder for your body to take protein and convert it into fat. This is what protein wants to do, is go to muscle, especially in post-workout state. So are all nutrients created equal? And this is what you were alluding to earlier. The answer is, of course, no. So I'm going to share with you how we developed the Shaklee sports products and why the workout type, intensity, and duration define the actual individual needs of the athlete and why our products actually work for everybody on the spectrum. So we have two, quote, lines, which I'm not crazy about how we delineated these, and it's called because we don't know it's causing a lot of confusion. We have a fitness line and an endurance line. Let's scrap those for a moment and not think that if you're a fitness athlete, you should use fitness, and endurance, you should use endurance, because for reasons unknown to me, a lot of people thought that if you're a fitness athlete, you should use fitness, and if you're endurance, you should use endurance. Who could see that one coming? So let's actually look at how you might want to use these products, given what we know now. Okay, so product category on the top is, let's say I use all endurance products or all fitness products. Okay, so down here, if you're walking, you remember the slide from earlier, you're burning fat and blood glucose. So you're not burning glycogen, remember? And we don't really want to replenish our fat supplies. Anybody here want to replenish our fat supplies?
No.
Okay, we're good. So we don't need to replenish fat supplies. So the what I'm recommending is that you use the fitness products as you're lower on the scale, and you blend them to get to the higher, you get to the endurance products as you go up the scale. So the question is, why is that? What makes the difference between the two products? So kind of put a pin in this. Remember sort of that basic concept that the harder you're working out, the more glycogen you're burning, the more endurance products you're going to use. Okay, and here's what it comes down to, is the carbohydrate content of each of these products. So the fitness line, if you look at it, is a low carbohydrate line. The endurance line is, that category, is a high carbohydrate line. Now, we now know that carbohydrates are not always bad. It depends on when you're eating them and if you're in a post-workout state where you reduce your glycogen or not. So when Shaklee originally built the sports line, it was around the Deadlift Project, which was about a 6-hour long cycling human-powered flight. Okay, so it was designed around what athletes would burn in an endurance environment, and so we were really looking at taxing your energy system much more so than your muscular system. So these two products, the hydration and the Build Plus, which were known as Performance and Physique at the time, were designed around that. So if you notice, this is a roughly 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. And that's because if you're doing cycling or running, you're doing some muscular damage, including your heart muscle. When you're working cardiovascular, right, your heart breaks down, it needs to rebuild. So you need some protein. But you're also needing to do a substantial amount of glycogen rebuilding. What's really interesting is, I remember when you're doing a high-intensity interval training, how many calories an hour you're burning? How much?
700-800?
More. 1,200.
1,200.
Okay, so a lot of people get concerned, am I going to get fat? Okay, you're taking in 200 calories here. And let's say you have double serving, that's your 400, and you burned 1,200 calories. This is not going to get you fat. That's going to throw gas on the fire. Okay, and that's how these were designed for the athletes who are doing more endurance stuff. So for you right here as a rower, what's the longest you row for?
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay, so how much glycogen do you have left at the end?
Nothing.
Almost none. Okay, so how muscular is rowing too?
It's pretty muscular.
It's pretty muscular. So we're going to come back to that in a minute. So the reason that we open up the fitness line as a low carb line is because let's say that you're doing, Bobby back here likes doing her hot yoga, right? She's a hot yoga person. How many calories an hour? 100. We're burning fat and maybe some blood glucose. So we don't need a lot of carbohydrates. The protein is going to be good for you. So that would be sort of one extreme here, weightlifting. Cardiovascularly, how hard is it on you? Not very. Okay.
No.
How muscularly, how much damage is weightlifting doing to muscles? Lots. That's the technical term, Bob. Thank you.
Lots.
Lots.
A bunch.
Okay. You get an A+. So you need a lot of protein. Okay. But let's look at what's happening here with rowing, which is both high intensity cardiovascular, because you're doing interval work for an hour and a half. It's not like you're sitting there just lollygagging around. You're doing high intensity interval repeats. Okay, so this is a prime example. But which muscles do you use the most? Everyone's shocked when they hear this in rowing. Their legs. Did anybody know that? No. Okay, fine. I did. I actually hang out with rowers, but I think most people didn't know. I guess we're in Boston here, right? So we kind of if you ask someone in Colorado, they're like, your arms, right? I mean, like, no, it's your legs. So your legs are massive muscles. Okay? So the question is, he's burning through all his glycogen, so shouldn't he take that? But he's using tons and tons of muscle, and he's tearing apart his muscle, so I think he should use this one. Right? So which one should he use? Yes, there you go. And that's actually how these were designed. Okay? The same is true with a hydrate, which is all the electrolytes and only 10 calories, because if we made it 0 calories, you'd never drink it. And then Hydrate Plus, which is all the electrolytes and 100 calories, which makes it taste really, really yummy. In fact, I make popsicles out of this for my son. He's 3. So these were also designed to be blended. So if you're lifting weights, or if Bobby's back there doing hot yoga, she needs all the electrolytes because you're sweating and you're getting rid of electrolytes. But you don't need a lot of carbohydrates because it's just going to turn into glucose, and it's going to then get converted to fat if you're not burning it. Okay. On the other extreme, if you're running hard intervals, doing what you're doing, you need this. So what if you're somewhere in between? What if you're doing a moderate run? Take one of these, and I got myself a 55 calorie serving drink. All the electrolytes, half the carbs. That's how these were actually designed. So if you understand this, I can get anywhere from here to here on the carbohydrate scale, and anywhere, this is a 7-to-1 ratio of protein to carbs, and that's a 3-to-1 carb to protein. So I can actually blend these two and get anywhere I want to on the protein and carbohydrate scale on my rebuild product. These are designed to use during, and these are designed to use after. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, 2 different systems. Think about your muscular system. Think about your energy system. We treat them differently. And then you just sort of diagnose each one with what type of workout am I doing. And then you feed your body proportionally what it needs. If you need protein but no carbohydrates, now you have a solution for that. If you need carbohydrates but no protein, or limited protein, we have a solution for that. If you need somewhere in the middle, we have a solution for that too. So this was a very simple yet elegant solution to the problem of how do you actually get proper nutrition for all the types of athleticism. The answer is you bracket it. You put one on either side, and you let people use it in the middle. Now the question is, should the same athlete use different products and different combinations, or should they stick to the same product combinations all the time?
Depends what they're doing.
Depends on what they're doing, right? It's not dependent on the athlete, it's dependent on the workout. So if he's doing an hour and a half or 2-hour rowing practice, and then he joins Bobby back here for hot yoga, now he needs to take lower carbohydrate and focus more on the protein, on the protein. So because that's not going to be fattening like a high carbohydrate will be in the absence of working out. So a lot of people got confused. A lot of people are still very confused in terms of sports. And I want to be very clear. This is sports nutrition. This is not weight loss nutrition. This is designed for for athletic performance at any level. Whether you're a high school athlete, whether you're a weekend warrior, this is not designed around weight loss. This is designed around turning your body into a athletic machine at whatever level you want it to. So key takeaways from this: your total workout benefit is the lesser of your workout and recovery. Carbohydrates and proteins serve different purposes. This sounds super simple. So as you're using these or as you're talking to people, remember to share this because people get really scared. I was talking to a gal who was doing 3-hour-long runs a week, and she was taking Build, which is all protein, afterwards. And I said, you must feel really horrible the next day. She said, yeah, I don't want to recommend these products. And I said, that's because you should eat carbohydrates after running for an hour. So just remember, protein and carbs have different purposes. And they're not bad or good, they're just different. And then your consumption after the workout and during is more important than before. A lot of people get stuck on this one. They think that what you do before matters a lot. It really doesn't. What you do after matters, because that's when you're going to rebuild your body. So any questions about our sports line, how to use these products?
That was really good. It's the first time I've heard that.
I hate to say it, it's the first time most people have, even athletes who I talk to.
I never knew.
I know.
You know, and you're in a sports program. I'm guessing this has probably not been laid out like this. I mean, I haven't even seen teams that talk about this. It's bizarre to me. So, funny story. Gennady is our physiologist. I was meeting with him a couple weeks ago to go over this presentation because he helped me with it. And he and my mom. And my mom still helps me with my homework. I'm 40. She has a PhD in nutrition. So, okay. So, I'm like, there's my mom. And Gennady was telling me, he said, in 2008, he was the physiologist for USA Swimming. And he was doing lactic acid blood tests on athletes while they're training. If you think about it, it's a somewhat difficult thing. How are you going to draw blood? So they developed a protocol of earlobe pricks, which I was a victim to a substantial amount. Left you sore for a couple days after your earlobe. But he would draw your blood, and they started collecting all sorts of data on this. As Michael was getting ready for the 08 Olympics, Gennady was working with him and his team, and he discovered as they got deeper into the training cycle and deeper into the week, their lactic acid production was going down. And Bob Bowman, his coach, said, hey, this is, we're not sure, but performance is going down as we get deeper into the week. Now, we would all have to say, oh, okay, you're fatigued. But what does that mean? Can we put a number on it? Can we put a name on it? Can we put a face on it? What does this fatigue thing mean? So Gennady started tracking it and said the lactic acid production of these elite athletes, they're the best swim team ever assembled, was probably that 2008 swim team that Michael was on at North Baltimore. And, they're all exhibiting the same signs, which is that their lactic acid was going down over time. So Gennady was able to theorize that this was a sign that their glycogen had not been properly rebuilt. And this is the most elite swim team ever assembled. And they did not have a sophisticated nutrition program. So he went over to the dining hall at the Olympic Training Center and said, I need to order all this food to the swimming pool. And so he put them on a food protocol during practice. And so they would routinely stop. And I see this with a lot of coaches. They're like, we don't stop for eating. And I'm like, that's okay. You can be a sub-elite. That's what we call sub-elite athletes. But he put all these athletes on an eating protocol during the workouts. What he discovered was that when they were eating carbohydrates, quality carbohydrates, during the workout, their lactic acid production went up. And we know lactic acid production is directly related to glucose and glycogen, typically going to be glycogen. And so he was able to make a correct inference that this had a substantial amount to do with their athletic performance. And then they saw the times were getting better as well. So this was, if you didn't know this, don't feel bad. This is not, unfortunately, it's actually, once you assemble the information, it makes a ton of sense. A lot of top sports teams in the country, a lot of college teams in the country, they simply don't train this stuff. So I wish I were to say it's cutting edge, but it's actually all been out there. It's just that a lot of times we rather work harder than smarter. So, yeah.
Is that how Shaklee figured it out with the Daedalus project?
No, I don't think so. I think they just sort of understood at a basic level you were burning energy. We didn't understand. I don't think anyone understood at the time how lactic acid works, how it was burning, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, not to my knowledge. So, any other questions? Good.